On April 14th, 1990, two teenage cousins stepped into the water at a spring so powerful that most professional cave divers refused to enter it. Less than 1 hour later, both were dead, trapped underwater with air still left in their tank. This is the story of Troy Spring, and why some caves don't need to collapse to kill you. When people think of Florida, they picture beaches, theme parks, and palm trees. But beneath the surface, Florida hides something far more dangerous, an enormous underground water system carved out over millions of years. The state contains hundreds of freshwater springs, more than anywhere else on Earth. Most look calm, inviting, almost unreal. But a small number are different. They belong to an elite and extremely dangerous category known as first magnitude springs, springs that release tens of millions of gallons of water every single day. These are not pools, they are exits. And one of the most powerful among them is Troy Spring, located in rural Lafayette County. Troy Spring pushes out nearly 100 million gallons of water every day from deep within the Floridan aquifer. That water escapes through an underwater tunnel, a long, narrow passage buried far below the surface. At roughly 70 feet deep, the spring opens into a submerged run where water surges outward with incredible force. Divers who have felt it describe the sensation as trying to swim directly into a jet of pressurized water. The current is constant, the tunnel is confined, and visibility can disappear instantly. Because of these conditions, Troy Spring remains largely unexplored. Even today, much of the cave system has never been fully mapped. It's not a place for curiosity, it's a place that demands absolute preparation. And in 1990, two young men didn't have it.
Clarence and Richard were cousins, but more than that, they were inseparable. They grew up outdoors, fishing, hunting, exploring. They were confident in the water and comfortable taking risks. At some point, the idea formed. They would dive Troy Spring. Exactly how the plan started is unknown, but one thing is clear. Everyone warned them not to do it. Friends told them it was too dangerous. Family members pleaded with them to reconsider. But confidence is dangerous when it isn't backed by training. On the morning of April 14th, the cousins drove to Troy Spring with basic scuba gear and one air tank each. No backups, no redundancy, just belief. At approximately 9:15 a.m., they entered the water. The descent was slow and controlled at first, sunlight fading as they dropped deeper. Reaching the cave entrance required them to descend to nearly 7 stories below the surface. Knowing at least one rule of cave diving, they brought a guideline, but instead of proper cave line, they used fishing line. Thin, flexible, easy to tangle. They secured it at the entrance and began swimming forward into the tunnel. Immediately, they felt the current pushing against them, but they continued. Roughly 50 feet inside the tunnel, one diver's regulator malfunctioned. Air began flowing uncontrollably. Instead of breathing normally, the diver was suddenly fighting a violent blast of air and bubbles, clouding vision and rapidly draining the tank. Panic set in. Underwater panic is lethal. Heart rate increases, breathing accelerates, decision-making collapses. Normally, this is where a diver would switch to a backup regulator, but there wasn't one. Their only option was to share a single working regulator, passing it back and forth while fighting the current. And then the water pushed them backward. As the current carried them toward the entrance, the fishing line wrapped around them. Arms, legs, equipment. The harder they fought, the tighter it pulled. What was supposed to lead them out was now holding them down. The current pressed them against it. Exhaustion set in. Coordination failed. They were close to open water. But close means nothing underwater. Both cousins drowned while air still remained in the tank. At 10:07 a.m., another diver discovered their bodies. There was no rescue possible. Later, recovery teams entered the water and found the cousins entangled so tightly that it took nearly 10 minutes just to cut them free. 10 minutes, long after life had already left them. This tragedy wasn't caused by a single mistake. It was a chain. No cave diving training, no redundant air supply, improper guideline, extreme current, likely nitrogen narcosis impairing judgment. In a calmer cave, they might have survived, but Troy Spring isn't forgiving.
It doesn't collapse, it doesn't warn, it simply waits. Today, Troy Spring still flows, pushing millions of gallons of water through a tunnel most divers will never enter. The cave remains largely unmapped, and the water still looks calm from the surface. Because in places like this, danger doesn't rush you, it lets you come to it.